Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to Robert Sports Show. I'm your host, Robert. Alright, as we are going down the Showcase of the Independents, for those of you who are new, each day in January we're going to profile a different independent wrestling company, and we're going to do the top 23 matches of 2023. Now, when I say independent wrestling, I am not including WWE, I'm not including AEW, I'm not including TNA, formerly known as Impact Wrestling. I'm not including New Japan, but I'm including everything else. So on the first, we went GCW. On the second was House of Glory. On the third was World Series of Wrestling. On the fourth was Wrestling Revolver. On the fifth was Northeast Wrestling. And then yesterday was Live Pro Wrestling out of the Northeast, out of Massachusetts. Today we are going to do Warrior Wrestling. It's going to be number 7 on our list here. Warrior Wrestling is a small company out of Chicagoland area. In 2023, they actually did not have as many shows as they had in the past. They only had 5 shows. I know there was a point where they were on Fight TV, then they weren't, and they were on YouTube only, and then they're back on Fight. So I don't know if there's something going on with the streaming rights. But they've only had 5 shows in 2023. Hopefully they have more, because they do offer some great wrestling. They had 37 matches, 30 men's, 5 women's, and 2 intergender. The Warrior Wrestling Champion is Casey Navarro for 569 days. The Warrior Wrestling Lucha Championship is actually one of my favorite titles because I'm really a big fan of the Lucha Libre, the high-flying style. Gringo Loco, 289 days. And the Warrior Wrestling Women's Champion, Sky Blue, 94 days. Yes, Sky Blue of AEW fame. That's what I love about AEW in New Japan, where we are in professional wrestling in 2024. We can have wrestlers wrestle a AEW contract, make the money they make, and still go wrestle the indies, and still go do New Japan, and still go do this. You've had Eddie Kingston, at House of Glory. You've had him at, I think, Warrior Wrestling Revolver, if I remember right. So maybe another company, but also New Japan. You've had Mox over in doing stuff with Wrestling Revolver and his buddy Sammy Callahan, and wrestling in New Japan. So, and El Hero del Vikingo has done a whole lot of indie stuff. So that's what I'm just tickled about 2024 going forward, is how we have a lot of these companies working together, and that quote forbidden door has been opened, and we have AEW letting their talent do stuff, and then you have New Japan doing stuff with AEW talent, and Impact and TNA Wrestling hopefully doing stuff with AEW and New Japan going forward, and Rev Pro and AAA, and just all of it together. So Warrior Wrestling, the top 23 matches of 2023. So from Warrior Wrestling number 30 on June 30th, we had Heather Reckless versus Sky Blue. Sky Blue got the victory. I give it 2 3/4. Number 22 from Warrior Wrestling 28, February 18th. The Warrior Wrestling Championship, champion Casey Navarro versus Brian Cage. Casey Navarro got the victory via countout. I give it 2 3/4 star. And then number 21 comes from Warrior Wrestling 27, January 21st. The Bang Bros, the only tag team that cannot be Googled. Please don't Google the Bang Bros. Austin Matthews and Davey Bang. They actually updated their name to Bang and Matthews. They went up against FTC LC, Storm Grayson and Trevor Outlaw. Storm Grayson and Trevor Outlaw got the victory. I give it 2 3/4 star. And then number 20 on the list comes Warrior Wrestling 30. We had Kota Hernandez, Sorta Incredible Iverson versus the Bang Bros. The Bang Bros getting the victory there. I gave it 3 star. Number 19 on the list comes from Warrior Wrestling 29 on March 25th. Brian Cage versus Zachary Wentz. Brian Cage getting the victory there in a 3-star match. And then number 18 comes from Warrior Wrestling 29. We had Storm Grayson versus Johnny Warrior. Yes, John Morrison, Johnny, Game Changer. I think what's his official name? John Hennigan. He just changes his last name to wherever he's at. But Johnny Warrior getting the victory there in a 3-star match. Number 17 on the list comes from Warrior Wrestling 28. Carlos Romo versus Jordan Cross. Jordan Cross getting the victory. I gave that 3 star. Number 16 on the list comes from Warrior Wrestling 31, Warrior Wrestling Championship, Casey Navarro defending this title versus Encore Moore. Casey Navarro getting the victory. I give that 3 1/4. Number 15 comes from Warrior Wrestling 30, Konosuke Takeshita versus Warhorse. Konosuke Takeshita getting the victory there. I gave it 3 1/4. Number 14 comes from Warrior Wrestling 30 as well. Cole Radrick, the Ratty Daddy, Sabin Gage, taking him on. Sabin Gage getting the victory over the Ratty Daddy, 3 1/4 star. Number 13 comes from Warrior Wrestling 31. Mike Santana, current House of Glory World Champion, versus Brian Keith, former Texas State Champion. Mike Santana getting the victory. I gave that 3 1/2. Number 12 comes from Warrior Wrestling 31. Sabin Gage versus Kota Hernandez. Sabin Gage getting the victory. I as well gave that one 3 1/2. Number 11 comes from Warrior Wrestling 30. Warrior Wrestling Championship on the line. Champion Casey Navarro versus Matt Cardona. Always ready, Matt Cardona. Losing to Casey Navarro. 3 1/2 star. Number 10 comes from Warrior Wrestling 29. The Warrior Wrestling Championship on the line. Champion Casey Navarro versus the East Coast Ace Jordan Oliver. Casey Navarro getting the victory there as well in a 3 1/2 star match. Number 9 comes from Warrior Wrestling 29. We had Top Flight, Dante Moore and Darius Martin versus the Velocities of June London and Paris Del Silva. Top Flight getting the victory there. I gave it 3 1/2. Number 8 comes from Warrior Wrestling 29. Jake Something versus Clark Connors. Clark Connors able to tackle the big man and taking him down and getting the victory, 3 1/2 star. Number 7, Warrior Wrestling 28, we had Mike Bennett of the Kingdom, or the Undisputed Kingdom, taking on Joey Janela, the Bad Boy. Bad Boy getting the victory there in 3 1/2 star match. Number 6, Warrior Wrestling 27, Christopher Daniels versus Eli Knight. The Fallen Angel, Christopher Daniels getting the victory, 3 1/2 star. Number 5, Warrior Wrestling number 30. Warrior Wrestling Lucha Championship match in a triple threat match. We had champion Gringo Loco versus Gabriel Forenza versus El Hilo del Vikingo, and Gringo Loco in a 3 3/4 star match, getting the victory, retaining his title. Number 4 for the Warrior Wrestling Championship, Warrior Wrestling number 27, Casey Navarro defending this title versus Buddy Matthews of the House of Black. Casey Navarro getting the victory, retaining the title, 3 3/4 star. Number 3 on the list comes from Warrior Wrestling 27. We had Konosuke Takeshita versus Zachary Wentz. Konosuke Takeshita getting the victory, 3 3/4 star match. Now, the next two matches, both of the same star rating. It was flip a coin on which I prefer was number 1. We have Warrior Wrestling 29. Warrior Wrestling Lucha Championship on the line in a triple threat match. And we have Warrior Wrestling number 28, Warrior Wrestling Lucha Championship on the line in a Fatal 4-Way. I have the Fatal 4-Way listed as number 1, the triple threat listed as number 2. The triple threat is champion El Hilo del Vikingo versus Gringo Loco versus Eris. The Fatal 4-Way is champion El Hilo del Vikingo versus Black Torres versus Arrowboy versus Aramis. On the Fatal 4-Way, 4 1/2 star champion El Hilo del Vikingo retaining his title. On the triple threat, on Warrior 28, Warrior Wrestling 29. 28 is the Fatal 4-Way, Warrior Wrestling 29 is a triple threat. The Del Vikingo versus Gringo Loco versus Eris. This is where Gringo Loco becomes the new Warrior Wrestling champion. I also give that 4 1/2. 2 of the top matches in 2023 goes to Warrior Wrestling. As we are doing the showcase of the independents and the countdown to the 31st of the month, 31 independent companies, we will also break away and do the top 4 TNA, WWE, AEW, and New Japan. We'll also do the best tag team matches in honor of the passing of Jay Briscoe. previews and reviews and best of Hard to Kill, and reviews of Hard to Kill, the GCW shows, and Royal Rumble, best of for the Royal Rumble. So a lot of NASCAR videos, pro football, pro wrestling, lots of videos coming your way here in January of 2024 and beyond, because we have the USFL starting at the end of March. As always, thanks for watching Robert Sports Show, and don't just have a great day, have a spiffy day. Robert Sports Show, your YouTube leader, sports channel content.